Hi, I'm Paul from Driver Error and I drive the E46 V8. We're going to do a little build series, not 100% sure of how many episodes as yet. Mixtures of video, probably a lot of pictures, bit of commentary from myself, and I'm going to show you how I went from this to that. It was back in 2015 when I bought the car. I bought it on an auction. It was eBay. Spontaneous last second bid, basically. Won the car. Wife really was not happy about it. When we got it back, it had a cage in it. We had hydro, some kind of makeshift cut knuckles, enough to go out and have a bit of fun in the car, really. Took it out my first day, again with one of the Driver Error lads, Ed. We were just kind of work colleagues at this point. I wasn't part of the team. Off the back of that, I ended up doing like a Wizards of Lock steering kit. They would basically the E46 extended arms. They were extended by 30mm. They also come with some rack spacers, and again their version of a cut hub, which was actually slightly different to what I had. Similar concept, but obviously I just kind of wanted to trust that it was a complete kit from Wizards of Lock, which actually is a guy called Alan. His stuff is excellent. Can't knock it. It was brilliant. A lot of people in the drift scene, certainly in the UK, run his kits. I also added some M-Tech brakes. They were drilled and grooved discs and new pads all round. Again, there were standard brakes, standard discs and pads that were on there. I didn't know how long they had been on there. They did break. They might have been absolutely fine, but kind of like just for peace of mind. I put a couple of new harnesses in there, and then I set about really trying to get rid of that awful back box that was already on the car with its up-mounted tailpipes. Damn! You'll probably see it in the little montage that will follow this little clip. I put a new back box on it, made it sound much better. I have to confess, before that, decided it was a good idea to try and straight pipe it. To people that know the engines for BMWs, they're renowned for being quite raspy. Certainly in the E46s, so like your M52s, M54s, which mine was. It wasn't a good idea. I took it to Teesside, and failed the noise test. I think it peaked at 115 decibels. So we went about trying to, being told by the guys at the track to fill it with some steel wool, which we did. I had to put a rivet in to stop it blowing the wool out. It was fine. We got through the day, enjoyed it, and then I bought a sleeved aftermarket back box for it, and we were good after that. It was all good. I think that's about it for kind of like certainly giving you a basic background of the car. I bought the car from on eBay. It was a guy that worked in a garage down in Sevenoaks in Kent. Nothing much more that I can really say about it. So I guess we'll move on to a little montage of what the car looked like, me drifting it on various days in its original state, and then we'll come back and I'll talk to you about like what the plans were, or certainly was back in 2020. It would have been late 2016.
And your dad? He's a liar.
When I when I decided to start stripping it, and also like what the original plans were with body kits, gearbox choices, and so on. So I'll see you after this little montage. So hopefully you've probably realised I had a real good time, certainly learning how to drift. I mean, prior to buying the car in that state, I'd never drifted, so it was all what you probably saw just then was certainly a natural progression from start to kind of the finish. So reasons for wanting to strip the car, I kind of felt that the car had certainly got up to its limit of where I wanted it, and also my future plans with the car. Again, it's not happened yet, but effectively I want to compete. Again, funds will probably restrict how much I compete, or certainly how much I get out in the car now. But obviously we're in UK's in lockdown 3 at the minute, so work to what we would normally be doing is certainly a bit more restricted. I mean, just give a quick background on myself. I am not a mechanic. I've always been into cars. I've always fixed my own cars. My dad was never a mechanic, never really massively into cars, but he always repaired his own, so I was always a bit hands-on, trying to help out. So my actual job is I'm a project manager for live events, so opposite end of the scales. I'm used to nice warm environments, working inside, but I do outdoor events as well, so it does help with working in a cold garage at times. So going back to the car, the original plans for it, I was convinced that certainly at the start, that after seeing, I can't remember the guy's name, I do believe his last name was Brown. He was competing in the Drift Cup, and I spoke to him a couple of times. He had an E46 with a 2J in it, so originally set out thinking that's what I wanted. Loved the noises it made. His car looked really good. Briefly spoke to him. He actually, he was very approachable. Most people in the drift industry are. He straight up just said to me, though, if you want to go down this route and do it properly, you need to realise the fact that you're probably going to need around the 30k mark. At the time, did come at a bit of a shock, I'm not going to lie. Probably a bit naive, really, in retrospect of how much I ended up spending, which again in future episodes we're going to do. Both myself and Ed, we're going to do a build cost breakdown on both the E46 V8 and also Ed's R32 Skyline. So I guess back to the E46. Again, the plan was, like I say, I had this idea of a 2J, but then when I started looking into it, 2Js are actually quite popular in drift industry, and actually and certainly the drifting scene, like the 2J is the kind of the go-to engine certainly now. I look back, and as much as a 2J would have been great, and it is a fantastic engine, I'm kind of glad that I didn't do it, in the fact that, you know, my car is going to be quite unique. There's not many E46s around with a V8 in. Most of them that have are probably more road cars, and my plan is that it will have a turbo in it eventually, and people that know of the kind of M60 and M62 BMW V8s, there's a good number of people around that are running them, and they've managed really big power. Apologies, my 13-week-old puppy is running around, so you might see him running up and down the stairs, so apologies for that. Just briefly referenced it. We were the engine I actually ended up going with for the engine swap for mine was a BMW V8. I did a bit of background about it. They're naturally quite torquey engines. The BMW V8 actually comes in three kind of variations, I would say. You've kind of got an M60 B40, which I guess probably most people will probably easiest car to reference of what that would have come in is the kind of the original 840, which was like the 8 Series coupe back in like the 90s. The predecessor of that was then an M62 B44, which was just a single Vanos, I believe. And then after that, they did an M62 B44 TU, which was a technical update, which is what you will probably see most common in like kind of your kind of like your 540, 740s, X5s. The single Vanos that I was telling you about, that was kind of like in your E39s, but yeah, mine actually came out of a 740, I believe, and mine was a TU. You read online for engine swaps, a lot of people are scared of the TU. Sorry, not entirely sure why. I think Vanos really scares people. I mean, don't get me wrong. In later episodes, you'll see the fact that I end up with a hybrid engine, effectively, where I end up running M60 heads instead of M62s. Not because I wanted to get rid of the Vanos. I do actually believe that the Vanos does give people a lot of benefits in terms of certainly the ECU side and programming it. You know, it's effectively BMW's version of a variable valve timing. That's what I'm led to believe. If any of these facts are wrong, I'm more than happy for people to comment below. Again, a lot of this project, I've kind of had to try and find the information myself. I've asked a few people. Well, I spoke to quite a few people. I would say there's a very small minority that aren't prepared to share their information. Not sure why. Surely a big V8 happy family is better than a lonely, not working V8 family. So yeah, so we ended up with an M62 B44 TU engine. Weirdly, it comes with, well, I say weirdly, it comes with a water-cooled alternator. So there was quite a bit of things that we had to change on it. We had to. I didn't want a water-cooled alternator, and also it's massive. It takes up a lot of space, and you'll see certainly in pictures to come that real estate within the engine bay is not generous. Because again, I've touched on it briefly, but I wanted to future-proof the car. So we later on you'll see the fact that we with manifold designs and stuff, it certainly becomes quite tight. Again, original plan with this engine, again, various amounts of sump kits are available now, but certainly when I first started this project, that there wasn't the kind of quality of sump kits around, I would say, which also, with the kits that are now available, certainly helps with gearbox choices. So I guess we'll finish off on the sump side. So the sump, there's lots of sump kits out there that basically bolt on, bolt off. Some basic modifications are needed to your oil pump, but then you there's various people saying that they had issues with it, little leaks, but again, I wasn't convinced that was necessarily the be all end all, and kind of the concept that I wanted to go down. Like looking at some of the ones that had been posted in pictures and stuff, I felt that the engine sat a lot further forward than it potentially could without affecting or needing to really cut out your firewall as such and move the engine right back. So I actually we've become good friends off the back of this. There's a guy that that runs a company called PWR Motors now. He's a specialist braker. Basically, if you want any performance parts, yeah, he's your go-to braker for kind of E92 M3 parts. I mean, he's got I think it's an M5 F10, I think it is at the minute for braking, a Porsche Cayenne. So yeah, just drop us a direct message and we'll certainly give you his details. But he originally had an E46, and he was swapping it for an M62 B44 in it. Lovely concept. Again, lots of parts. But he'd done a lot of research into running an N62 rear sump. So for people that don't know, an N62 B44 engine is the basically the parent engine of what mine is. And again, that came in 7 Series, 5 Series, but that actually runs a rear timing chain and also a rear sump and pump, and the timing chain links into the pump, and it's a change-driven one. So yeah, he'd done a lot of research. He'd managed to fit the sump up. He'd had the lower timing chain cover modified and tapped out to match up. He'd had the pump modified with an extended shaft, because on the M62 engine it's front chain, so obviously pump we want in the back for the sump, but obviously we need it driven from the front, so basically the pump I believe is reversed, and the shaft comes out the opposite way. And then Romney hadn't quite got this far, but we then had to set about trying to figure out what cogs would fit in there to obviously drive the pump, and also what kind of oil pump chain would fit from the crank down to it. And then again, later on in the series, you'll see the fact that I'm no fabricator, but we kind of fabricate up a bit of a tensioner to tension the oil pump chain, because we trying to find an OEM sprocket and chain combination that would fit. There's lots of rumours out there of what people have made work or do work. truthfully, I spent a lot of money and time messing around with the combinations that people talked about. None of them were exact. I feel what I've ended up with is probably the best. I mean, it's a brand new standard oil pump chain, and then I actually use a VW Golf, I believe it is, tensioner, and I just fabricate a bracket up. And truthfully, I've the car's been on the dyno twice. It's ran a full drift day and also a bit of a shakedown day. Not had an issue. I've actually had the timing chain covers off numerous occasions as well after all this, and there's certainly no wear on the tensioner or any sign of stress, so it must be working. Not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's the best solution, but it's certainly working. So we'll again, it's just a bit of trial and error with it currently. Where do we go from there? So I mean, that's kind of where I am with the sump. So the purpose of the sump was the fact that where the subframe currently sits, we then, with the fact that it's a rear sump, don't get me wrong, it's a big rear sump, we managed to then fit it behind the front subframe. We did have to notch a little bit out of the subframe to make it sit right or nicer, and again, you'll see that in kind of, well, I'll talk about that in a couple of more takes. Really, we've got a couple of other bits that we want to talk about. I've kind of cut this episode a little shorter than we'd originally planned. There's things that I've talked about and also know about it certainly made this episode really long, so I've kind of cut it here. I'm going to cut into a montage of where the car's going to be getting stripped down. You'll see pictures of the engine when I kind of bought it, the V8. You'll see the old engine getting pulled out. You'll see the old parts and how they looked, and then what they look like when they're freshened up with the powder coating, and then you'll see me again in episode 2, where we'll talk about the paint. I'll talk to you a bit more in detail about the strip down, but probably also the main bit of that will be the fabrication side and what we had to do to make it both competition compliant, but also to make it easy to work on. thanks for watching that montage. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Obviously, we do this out of our own pocket, so any kind of help is greatly appreciated. So yeah, don't forget to watch the kind of series that's running in Jason with myself, which is Ed's R25, RB25, sorry, Skyline engine rebuild. That's really good, fully forged engine. Could be quite interesting for a number of you out there. So on that note, I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.